Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conkling Hall's Irish Writers' Fest in honor of St. Patrick's Day. I am John Arrighi, Chair of Friends of Conkling Hall. Just 1 year ago, I had to send out an email canceling our 2020 Irish Writers' Fest. I recently read that email again and was amazed to see that I wrote that we were, quote, canceling events for at least the next 2 weeks, and we will reassess things at that time. Irish Writers' Fest in honor of St. Patrick's Day. I am John Arrighi, Chair of Friends of Conkling Hall. Just 1 year ago, I had to send out an email canceling our 2020 Irish. Okay, sorry for that interruption. I said we'd cancel events for at least 2 weeks and reassess things at that time. I guess I wasn't the only one who underestimated this virus. We have taken good advantage of our time closed to the public to make a number of improvements, and I think you will be very pleased with the appearance and condition of the hall when we are again able to hold public events there. Of course, that is all made possible by the strong support of you and many local business sponsors, as well as a great board of directors. I encourage you to patronize our local supporting businesses. You just saw them listed on a slide at the beginning of this program. They are also all listed on our website. You can see the full list on our page, conklinghall.org, under the About Us tab. I hope you will consider clicking on the Donate Now button that I am hopeful is visible to everyone. And you can also go to the conklinghall.org website to sign up for our email notices, to volunteer, and to get more information about the hall. Today's event is the brainchild of board member Vivian Galloway, who realized that Irish Writers' Fest would work very nicely on Zoom, and then made it happen. So great thanks to her. And I also want to thank Joe Frasino and Casey Detro for working behind the scenes to keep the technology working smoothly. Now's the time I would normally make what we call the fire speech about the restroom locations and the exits in the event of an emergency. But I'm just going to assume that you probably know better than I where the nearest restroom and door are located. And now for at least 10 of our previous Irish Writers' Fests, we have been blessed with a wonderful MC, friend of Rensselaerville, and seriously Irish spirit. And I'm very pleased that we can welcome back the delightful Reverend Claire Longton North today. Claire lives in Manchester, Vermont, where she is the founder of a community ministry in the mountains. One of her proudest achievements is to be an honorary Arvillian, and she continues to be asked back to host the program that she considers the sweetest and most delightful St. Patrick's Day event on this side of the pond. And we certainly thank Claire for that lovely compliment. Claire has graced the stage at Conkling Hall and also graced our living rooms. She always brings a delightful combination of charm, wit, and intellect to everything she does. One day, I hope to hear her reprise her hilarious harangue on how to brew a proper cup of tea. Claire will be calling up our performers and keeping everything on track as we enjoy poetry, songs, and prose presented by our friends and neighbors. Take it away, Claire.
Hello, beloveds. I am so happy to be among you, whatever way we can be with each other. And I'm going to start in right away because our first 4 performers do have time constraints. So I'll be interjecting with charm and wit as we go along. So first is Dean Parker. Is it Dean Patrick Parker or Dean Parker?
Today it's Dean Patrick Parker.
Oh, good. Okay. And he will be playing Click Go The Shears or Waltzing Matilda.
I'm going to play Waltzing Matilda.
Okay.
Once a jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of the coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched, awaited for his billy to boil. You come a waltzing Matilda with me. Down came the jumbuck, jumped into that billabong. Up jumped the swagman and glabbed him with glee, and he sang as he stowed that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he stowed that jumbuck in his tucker bag. You come a waltzing Matilda with me. Down came the squatter, mounted on his thoroughbred. Up came the troopers, 1, 2, 3. Ah, who's that jolly jumbuck you've got in your tucker bag? You come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you come a waltzing Matilda with me. As he sang, as he watched that jumbuck in his tucker bag, you come a waltzing Matilda with me. Well, up jumped the swaggy, jumped into that billabong. You'll never catch me alive, said he. And his ghosts may be heard if you passing by that billabong. Who come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard if you pass by that billabong. You come a waltzing Matilda with me. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you come a waltzing Matilda with me. And his ghost may be heard if you're passing by that billabong. You come a waltzing Matilda with me.
Dean, thank you so much. You know, in that song, I'm sure all of you know that Australia was started as a penal colony and that it was mostly Irish and Scots that were shipped there. They thought if the journey didn't kill them, that Australia itself would. But there you have it. We know what we have from Australia now. And I think one of the biggest jokes is the wonderful wine we get from Australia. So Waltzing Matilda, there's also a beautiful protest song, very poignant, that's based on Waltzing Matilda. And it was about the Australian regiments who fought in World War I. It was on I think All the Traditions on public radio about a month ago. And it was really quite something. I'll never forget that rendition of it. So thank you. We always like to hear how anything Celtic thinks several times before it pays attention to authority. Okay, so next we have Sarah Nelson, and she'll be singing a very old Irish air, She Moved Through the Fair, one of my very favorite songs, and one of the first I learned, and one of the first I remember my own mother singing. It always showed up at kitchen parties, and at events. And Sarah's voice has graced us, from the village voices to the barefoot ladies to chanting in Sanskrit, so many ways. So this is another place to be really grateful for this technology, so we can hear her. Sarah.
Thank you. I have to say, I asked Philippa for a suggestion about what to sing, and she sent me this link. And as soon as I heard it, I said, it's perfect. That's exactly what I want to sing. The version that she sent me was by Anne Briggs, which I listened to many times and learned. And it's very simple sketch. And I thought, I wonder if there are more verses. So I went to listen, and there are not more verses, it turns out, but there are more words. But I'm not going to sing them. I'm going to sing the simple version that was sung by Anne Briggs. You can fill in all the blanks. It's quite a mysterious and beautiful, simple little sketch. My young love said to me, my mother won't mind, and my father won't slight you for your lack of kind. Then she laid her hand on me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. She laid her hand on me as she moved through the fair. I watched her so fondly move here and move there. Then she laid her hand on me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. Last night she came to me, my dead love came in. She came in so softly, her feet made no din. Then she laid her hand on me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. Thank you. Thank you, Philippa, for teaching me that beautiful song. And I'm so happy to be here again.
Thank you, Sarah. That was really, it was beautiful and so poignant too at this time, because one of the things that song reminds us of is our mortality. And that's one of the things, whether it was sung at a wedding, whether it was sung at a wake, whether it was just sung at any kind of gathering where people happened to be together, it reminded everyone of their mortality, because of course, we're all miracles in that we're here. When you think of the famines, the plagues, the deaths, the genocides throughout history, we are all miracles that we were here. And the poignancy of that was that, you know, he saw her at the fair where everyone is happy and busy and upbeat. And then the next word he got, who knows who told him, was that his betrothed was no longer there. Not any longer on this side of the veil. So Sarah, that was beautiful. And the music, Philippa, thank you as well. The music to that, it tugs at my heartstrings. So next we have Patricia Britton, and she will be reading an Ashley O'Neill poem. And Patricia, I leave it up to you to tell us something about the poem, its title, and something about Ashley O'Neill, who I know is a West of Ireland poet and well awarded.
Patricia, are you unmuted and there?
Yes. Are you receiving me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I am unmuted.
Great. Take it away, Patricia.
Okay. I only discovered, good, thank you. I only discovered Ashley O'Neill. Thank you. I discovered Ashley O'Neill recently, and I do have a little background information on her. She is an award-winning poet and filmmaker who lives in the Gaeltacht in a village called Ballyvorney in an upland, non-coastal region of Southwest Ireland that borders County Cork, County Kerry, and County Limerick. It's a mountainous area, and it's not frequented very much by tourists or outsiders, but the area has been, there's a poetry and history, a very localized regional poetry that's been continuous for centuries. And she, Miss O'Neill, is a non-Irish speaker who spent a lot of time talking to native speakers so that she could acquire their tales and stories. And this has influenced her own writing. Her first collection of work is titled The Wren is Near. She's won original poem awards, poetry slams, and this poem is a poem from that first collection, The Wren is Near. So here we go. Ashley O'Neill, The Tale of the Vulnerable. The line at the beginning of the old tale comes from the lips of the beggar king as he waits in the doorway of old myth. His crown beside him is all rusted and worn. The day breeds a sadness and a wonder that only children of old know. The rhythm of footsteps holds the march of men who trampled on the wildflowers of spring, but among the sounds, a bell rings so quietly. She is there. She is there with eyes of love that humility tempers. Prayers are made with each footstep. Mantras are chanted by the smile that leaves the lips. Surrender is a storm that never comes, and the cracks in the sidewalk are the tunes for the ballads that keep getting sung in glens where the desolate houses still breathe. Off and away, the farmer is walking his dog to oblivion as the rosary of existence is said by the hands of the last fires. What will the tale be when the old man of the mountains passes silently into the mist? Who will hold the soft hands of the ancient knowledge when the alarm of emptiness rings above the city's sorrow? Tragic days without rain. I want to tell you the new tale, but my heart does not know the way to the past where innocence resides. Tell me how to whisper to the king so I might show him where to drink from the well that renews. Show me how to meet the soft doe of the woods, so that I might run with the warrior and stand with the woman who rules the city where the crystal guards the threshold. Tell me how to live with the ancient sun, whose tribe knew how to preserve the gentle star at the end of the world. For only now do I know what the beggar king tells with his eyes. Ashley O'Neill, The Tale of the Vulnerable.
Patricia, thank you so much for that. And there was one line that I think will stay with me, and that's the soft hands of wisdom. And I think I like to think of all of us as not only are we the soft hands, but we're the wisdom as well. That was just such a beautiful poem. And thank you. I'll be looking up that anthology, and it'll find its way into the pile by the bed and onto the shelf. Thank you. So next we have Dennis DeSaro, and I want everyone to make sure they note how beautiful he has set his stage for playing a song and singing it called Johnny Maceldoo. And this song, I think, is a great example of the sense of fun and play in language that the Irish have. And Dennis, where are you? There you go. And
there we go. That should be it. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are, Dennis. You
Okay.
are live and unmuted.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here at long last, as I explained before. I almost hesitate to start this song. It is an old tongue twister, and usually my wife sits in the audience and waits for me to trip on a syllable, and she goes, and then, and then after that, I hope she runs out of fingers. There was Johnny Maceldoo and McGee and me, and a couple or two or three went on a spree one day. They had a bob or two and we knew what to do, so the beer and whiskey flew and we all felt gay. They went to Humpty Dance, Jack McCann's, Ed McMahon's, and we then went into Swann's, our stomachs for to pack. Ordered out to feed, which indeed we did need. Then we finished it was speed, but we still felt slack. Johnny Maceldoo turned as blue as Magoo, and a plate of Irish stew he soon put out of sight. He hollered out the core with the roar for some more, saying he never felt before such a keen appetite. He ordered eggs and ham for to cram, If we couldn't cram, though we tried our level best. Everything we brought, cold or hot, battered nut, it went down him like a shot, and he still stood the test. He swallowed tripe and lard by the yard, we got scarred. We thought it would go hard when the waiter brought the bill. We told the Duke for, but he swore he could lower twice as much again and more before he got his fill. He nearly stopped a trough full of broth, says McGrath. You'd devour the tablecloth if you don't reel him in. When the waiter brought the charge, Maceldoo felt so large, he began to scout and barge, and his blood went on fire. He began to curse and swear, tear his hair in despair, and to finish the affair called Shop Man a Liar. Shop and he drew out and milk out. He did pout, Maceldoo, he kicked about like an old football. Tattered all his clothes, I suppose. He tattered all his clothes, broke his nose, I suppose. He would have killed him with a few blows in no time at all. Maceldoo began to howl and to growl by my soul. He threw an empty bowl at the shopkeeper's head. It struck where Mickey Flynn peeled the skin off his chin, and the ructions did begin, and we all fought and bled. The peelers did arrive, man alive, 4 or 5, and the dusty made a drive for us all to march away. We paid for all the bait, stood a trait. All the meat that we ate stood a trait, and went home to ruminate on the spree that day. I think it was about like that. Okay, pleasure to be here. If I may throw in a short advertisement, on Wednesday, 7 o'clock, on my easy to spell for me, hard for you Facebook page, I'm going to do an Irish program. And thank you all again.
that's great. Thank you so much, Dennis. That was a lot of fun. It's always a test, when you can string something like that together and make all the words and the rhymes and all the amusement of it work. I love it. So next, Ninetta Dickerson, and she's going to recite Pangur, or The Scholar and His Cat, Pangur. And this is one of those things that you learn when you're a child in school. You usually learn it in Irish and you learn it in English as well. And I think Ninetta will tell you some of the delightful history about this, because it's born, I think, of boredom and of restlessness on the part of an isolated monk. There you go, Ninetta.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, Pangur. I just love this little delightful poem. I read a book by Thomas Cahill called How the Irish Saved Civilization, which explained that after the fall of the Roman Empire, much of the books and learning and libraries in Europe were destroyed. And it was Irish monks who painstakingly hand copied books in Greek and Roman, both Christian and non-Christian volumes, to pass on European civilization. So this poem is anonymous, attributed to a 9th century monk. Pangur is his cat. And I'd also like to just mention the beautiful little Irish animated film called The Secret of Kells. It's a beautiful film, and Pangur is a very important character in this film. But this is the poem. I and Pangur, my cat, 'tis a light task we are at. Hunting mice is his delight. Hunting words I sit all night. Better far than praise of men, 'tis to sit with book and pen. Pangur bears me no ill will, he too plies his simple skill. 'Tis a merry task to see at our tasks, how glad are we, when at home we sit and find entertainment to our mind. Oftentimes a mouse will stray in the hero Pangur's way. Oftentimes my keen thought set takes a meaning in its net. Gainst the wall he sets his eye, full and fierce and sharp and sly. Gainst the wall of knowledge I all my little wisdom try. When a mouse darts from its den, oh, how glad is Pangur then. Oh, what gladness do I prove when I solve the doubts I love. So in peace our task we ply, Pangur, my cat and I. In our arts we find our bliss. I have mine and he has his. Practice every day has made Pangur perfect in his trade. I get wisdom day and night, turning darkness into light.
Ninetta, thank you so much. It nearly went by too fast. You know, we have to wonder what happened to that monk and his poetic talent as time went on. And it just shows you that no matter where you are, what you're doing, there's poetry in every moment and in all the observations. And that's one of the things I've always loved about that poem, the vision of it, and him and the cat for company in the lonely task of transcribing and illustrating those manuscripts that found their way into so many other hands. So next I have on the list Pat Frik, who is going to read from the last chapter of Edna O'Brien's Mother Ireland, which is titled Escape to England.
Hello, good to see everyone.
Hello.
Hope you can hear me. So this is a very short chapter, in case anyone's worried I'll go on too long. I thought it was rather appropriate to read as an ex-Brit, because as some of you may know, Edna O'Brien, born in Ireland, moved to London in her late 20s to live, probably partly because of what she wrote and how she wrote it. And coming from a very conservative country, I don't think her writings were very well received for at least a while there. But anyway, she's still alive. She's, I think, 90 or in her 90s. And this book, I'm not sure if it's her only non-fiction book. Mother Ireland was written in 1976. So we bear in mind that this is about an Ireland that is long gone, but possibly some of us will remember. And the theme, I think many of us can identify with as people who've left their country or their immediate surroundings and look at it in hindsight and with love and sometimes with other thoughts too. So here we go, Escape from England, to England, excuse me, by Edna O'Brien from the book Mother Ireland. Leaving Ireland was no wrench at all. I took the mail boat like most others, sat up all night, watching the drinking, the spilling, walked the deck, remembered how Mr. Thackeray and Mr. Heinrich Boll had come in by boat to write leisurely about it, remembered the myriad others, natives who had gone out to forget. Euston Station was a jungle, grim and impersonal. The very pigeons looked factory-made. And when I saw the faces of the English, I thought not of the long catalogue of bloodletting history, but of murder stories I had read in the Sunday papers, and of that swarthy visiting Englishwoman from long ago who brought corn caps and a powder puff stitched into her hanky. This was to be home. It had nothing to recommend it. Unhealthy, unfriendly, mortarish, and to my ignorant eye morbid, because I kept seeing wreaths and did not know that there was such a thing in England as Remembrance Sunday, which for those of you here who don't know happens on the same day as Armistice Day and commemorates the First World War. But I had got away. That was my victory. The real quarrel with Ireland began to burgeon in me then. I had thought of how it had warped me and those around me and their parents before them, all stooped by a variety of fears. Fear of church, fear of Gombinism, fear of phantoms, fear of ridicule, fear of hunger, fear of annihilation, and fear of their own deeply ingrained aggression that can only strike a blow at each other, not having the innate authority to strike at those who are higher. Pity arose also, pity for a land so often denuded, pity for a people reluctant to admit that there is anything wrong. That is why we leave. But leaving is only conditional. The person you are is anathema to the person you would like to be. But time changes everything, including our attitude to a place. There is no such thing as perpetual hatred, no more than there are unambiguous states of earthly love. Hour after hour, I can think of Ireland. I can imagine without going far wrong what is happening in any one of the little towns by day or by night, can see the tillage and the walled garden, see the spilt porter foam along the counters. I can hear arguments and ballads, hear the elevation bell and the prayers for the dead. I can almost tell what any one of my friends might be doing at any hour, so steadfast is the rhythm of life there. I open a book, a school book maybe, or a book of superstition, or a book of place names, and I have only to see the names of Ballyhooly or Raheen to be plunged into that world from which I have derived such a richness and unquenchable grief. The tinkers at Rathkeel will be driving back to their settlement by now, I say, and the woman who tells fortunes in her caravan will be sending her child down for the 10th loaf of sliced bread, while a mile or two away in her domain, Lady So-and-so will tell the groomsman how yet again she got her horse into a lather, and on some door in a town, a little black crepe scarf dangling from a knocker will have on it a handwritten black-edged card stating at what time the remains will be removed. while the hideous bald bungalows will be mushrooming along the main roadsides. The men will be trying, as always, to distance their fate, either through drink or dirty stories, and the older women will be filled with the knowledge of how crushing their burdens are, while young girls will be gabbing to invent diversion for themselves. It is true that a country encapsulates our childhood, and those lanes, fires, fields, flowers, insects, suns, moons, and stars are forever reoccurring and tantalizing me with a possibility of a golden key which will lead beyond birth to the roots of one's lineage. Irish? In truth, I would not want to be anything else. It is a state of mind as well as an actual country. It is being at odds with other nationalities, having quite different philosophy about pleasure, about punishment, about life, and about death. At least it does not leave one pusillanimous. Ireland, for me, is moments of its history and its geography, a few people who embody its strange quality, the features of a face, a holler, a line from a singed play, the whiff of night air, but Ireland insubstantial, like the goddesses poets dream of, who lead them down into strange circles. I live out of Ireland because something in me warns me that I might stop if I lived there, that I might cease to feel what it has meant to have such a heritage, might grow placid, when in fact I want yet again, and for some indefinable reasons, to trace that same route, that trenchant childhood route, in the hope of finding some clue that will, or would, or could make possible the leap that would restore one to one's original place and state of consciousness, to the radical innocence of the moment before birth. Thank you.
Pat, that was just so beautifully read, and it's so honored Edna O'Brien's writing and her talent and the summation of her life. When I was in Ireland, it wasn't too long after she had made her emigration. And like so many Irish writers and artists around that time, people were finding, well, I need to go someplace else so I can fully realize myself. And it wasn't just what Edna O'Brien wrote in exposing, the abuse of girls and women and, the sexual morbidities in the country towns and villages. It was her extraordinary talent. And the male-led, writers and writing population at that time were extremely threatened by her. So, off she went, and she's created such a remarkable legacy. And I think she's written a memoir that came out several years ago, and it's great, good fun about all the people that she met and mingled with while she was in England, and just how being there allowed her to be who she was, Irishness and all. So thank you for that. Okay, next, Philippa Dunne, and she's going to play the concertina, which is something I always look forward to. I love that instrument. And she said, by the way, correct lingo is tune, not song. Okay. There you go, Philippa.
Oh, Philippa, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
What is this here? Oh. So I'm going to play a march, but it's played as an air. So I guess that sort of makes it a waltz. It's called Hector the Hero.
Philippa, can you tell us anything about the history of that?
Of the song, the tune? Yes, I can. In more recent history, I learned it from Noel Hill, who is just our wonderful concertina player. And he always comes here in the summer, except last summer. And this summer, we're going to do our thing online. So we'll probably have a concert and I'll invite you guys. But Hector, people didn't seem to know what his last name was, but he was actually a gay military man. And he ended up committing suicide. And that piece was written in his honor. And I thought it was really beautiful in the Irish community that beautiful piece was written on that occasion.
Thank you so much for that, because there was just something that struck at me. There was an honor to it, the feeling of honor, and yet there was just such a deep sadness underscoring, the entire melody.
And that's that Irish thing too, because it's actually in a major key, but they always sit on the sixth, which is the minor mode within the major.
And, whenever the concertina or the tin whistle came through the door, we'd know it was going to be a very special night. Usually we just had somebody that would play the spoons, or we had everyone would sing a cappella, but, and especially it was like the concertina, just everyone was immediately uplifted. So I'm just so grateful that you play that for us, and that it's part of this, and that today is such a great interspersement of the spoken word and of song and of played music, and it's everything this event has always been in so many ways. So Philippa, thank you, and thank you for telling us the history of that.
And thank you for asking me, because I sort of didn't want to bring it up.
Oh, I'm so glad you had it at the ready. So next we have Diana Hinchcliff, who has been sending out the most remarkable newsletters from Rensselaerville First Presbyterian Church. Just so extraordinarily curated that every week I've been looking forward to them. I've discovered so many things through them, and I just want to thank you in advance, Diana, for being that voice of outreach for First Presbyterian in Rensselaerville. And now you're going to do 3 short poems by Irish poets about the pandemic.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, and thank you for that nice compliment. And hello, everybody, those of you that I can see and everyone who's watching that we can't see. It's the next best thing to being together, and I hope that next, I'm sorry, I just saw a note from Philippa. I hope that next St. Patrick's Day we can be together again. I have 3 poems, short poems, to read. They are by contemporary Irish poets. All of them have won awards of one kind or another for their poems. And I chose the topic of the pandemic because it's timely, but they're not depressing poems. They're actually full of hope. So here they are. The first one is called "And the People Stayed Home." It's by Kitty O'Meara. She's a retired teacher who lives in Madison, Wisconsin. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. So the second one is by Jean O'Brien, Jean, a woman, Jean. She was born in Dublin and lives in the Midlands now. It's not titled. When all this is over and we have obeyed the freshness of water, the susurrations of air, we will still know death's piercing scent. It is the sweet grass smell of tarragon, mixed with the pungency of lemon thyme. We must not forget that the forests hold our breath, every leaf a green promise, every bud a gift. We will circle the wagons, treasure the warmth of our fire, lambent flames reflecting their glow in our eyes. We must hold on with the stalking fox, the howling wolf, the swimming fish, the birds wheeling in the air, and us holding on, all here, all still here. And the last one is by Derek Mahone. He was born in Belfast, doesn't live there now, but he comes from there, went to Trinity College. It's called Everything is Going to Be All Right. How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond the dormer window and a high tide reflected in the ceiling? There will be dying, but there's no need to go into that. The lines flow from the hand unbidden, and the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything, and the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunshine, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And us all being together here today really affirms that we have that determination. And in spite of the enormous losses and the enormous changes, we'll be feeling the changes ripple through us and how we've been changed for a long time. And those poems all acknowledge that. I think Derek Mahon, he died this past year. I think somebody sent me an obituary about him. It was a great loss. But, as we get older, I think that's something we do realize, that everything will be all right. What that all right is, we don't always know, but everything will be all right, and we will be in it as we can be. So that was a beautiful trio that it wove together, the loss, the change, the resilience, and the hope. Thank you. All right. So I'm looking next. John, would you like to go next? And I'll go after you, and then Charlie.
I think we could do that.
Okay. Now, John, you're doing this. If you're not already on it, this is through the On Being website, Krista Tippett's website. And Pádraig Tuama he's just like the poet in residence now for that program. And it's astonishing what he has been curating and the programs that he's been doing. It's kind of ephemeral. I don't think it comes out necessarily every week, but when it does, it's really astonishing. And sometimes he will also live stream from Ireland. And I highly recommend it. So thank you, John, for doing this poem by him.
My pleasure. Yeah, I will just say that I came to know of Krista Tippett's podcasts a few years back, and she does the most amazing interviews with some absolutely fascinating people. And they're extremely well worth listening to, and she's very insightful in her questions, and her guests just have terrific perspectives on life and the world, and I think that'll be reflected very clearly in this poem. This is The Facts of Life by Pádraig Ó Tuama, and I would like to thank Tamara for bringing this particular poem to my attention. That you were born and you will die, that you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not, that you will lie, if only to yourself, that you will get tired, that you will learn most from the situations you did not choose, that there will be some things that move you more than you can say, that you will live, that you must be loved, that you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention, that you began as the fusion of a sperm and an egg of two people who once were strangers and may well still be, that life isn't fair, that life is sometimes good and sometimes even better than good, that life is often not so good, that life is real, and if you can survive it, well, survive it well, and love, with love and art, and meaning given where meaning's scarce, that you will learn to live with regret, that you will learn to live with respect, that the structures that constrict you may not be permanently constricting, that you will probably be okay, that you must accept change before you die, but you will die anyway. So you might as well live, and you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love.
Well, John, that poem, I felt I looked in a mirror.
I think that it speaks to us the older, more and more the older we get, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And you know, John, it's like the way that acceptance comes for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's always there, like kind of tapping you on the shoulder and saying, well, you know, what you going to do about this? And how have we made friends or made peace or resisted acceptance? I think we've had it all with that fact of life and those facts of life during this past year. And here we are. So that was just great. Thank you. So I'm going to go next, and I'm going to read a short poem that I had recommended Vivian read. And she's not here to do it, so I want to read it in her honor and to honor her for all of the work that she put into this event, because we know just by sitting through the half hour that we were all on before the event started, we just know how much time these things take and how much it takes up in our brains and in our emotional life. And I just think it's great how you all followed through with us. All right, 262. This is by the Irish poet Kerry Hardy, and this is from the Wake Forest Book of Irish Women's Poetry. It's quite the tome, but very worthwhile. I got really lost in it last night and was up very late, as usual. So this short poem is called Again, and Vivian wanted it to be something optimistic. Again, Spring comes roundly as the round calls of pigeons in the early morning. March is starry with celandines. Catkins hang in falls of yellow rain. In unleafed woods, the beer-brown pools stretch creaturely as hairs in the clean light. So as the winds howl outside here in Vermont, and it's snowing, thank you very much, we know that spring is inevitable. And this is part of a short story that comes from Kevin Barry's latest book of short stories. And if you haven't read Kevin Barry, I highly recommend you get a book of his short stories and have a night to yourself where nobody will mind you howling and roaring and laughing and occasionally crying. So I'm dedicating this to my beloved friend, Linda Miller, the reading of it, because once Linda got her hands on this book, she proceeded to get it for other people and distribute it, because she really recognized it as the West of Ireland voice that she heard on our trip there. This comes from the story that's the title of this, That Old Country Music. And it's a story of two people not really doing all that well by each other. He did not drink much, she'd say that for him. He would sit up late while her mother slept. For a long while they had sat at opposite ends of the L-shaped sofa, as far apart from each other as they could get, which in itself had signaled a situation. He said that particular stretches of ground had for him a lucky vibration. He said the curlews most of all. Once a prime buck had skittered from the ditch and lurched into the side of the van and dropped stone dead of the shock, and all Shadanda had to do was haul it home and hang it to be skinned. These are the type days I get in the curlews all the time, he said. He spoke often of fatedness and of meant-to-bes. Then came the 3 a.m. of his soft, slow hand in the kitchen, and it was a case of smoochy and throwing each other up against the walls before anyone knew what was going on. She pulled down the sun visor for its mirror. She had a face on her like a scorched budgie. She detested her new self. By nature like a stick, she was taking on weight with the pregnancy. Beneath her breath, she made the words of a Taylor Swift song for distraction, but the song did not take. News headline: there was no sign of Shadanda Brahmal on no dirt bike. She saw him with his limbs splayed on the petrol station floor. She heard the ratchety, cruel tightening of the cuffs. Or maybe the Belarusian who had worked the morning shift had just hopped the counter and grabbed the hammer and laid Shadanda out flat with a single bop to the broadside of the head. The Belarusian was a massive guy who must have weighed about as much as a cement mixer. Shadanda's plan had gaps and weak spots. Hannah Cryan climbed from the van and walked from the forestry pines onto the back road. By now the morning had clouded over, and the vast spread of the whitethorn blossom across the hillsides and the high fields and the ditches made an ominous aura as it moved in the wind. Once as a child, she had been slapped across the face by her mother for bringing an armful of the blossom into the house. The whitethorn flower, so much as passing the threshold, was a harbinger of certain death in the family. By about the Tuesday of the next week, she had meant it as a gift for her lovely young mother. As she sat on a 5-bar gate up in the Curlew Mountains, the great meanness of the morning descended on her. She hummed a string of 4 or 5 notes against that meanness, not knowing where they came from nor how. The plan, was that they would drive through the day and the north to the ferry at Larne for Stranraer, and from there descend through Scotland and the borders. She watched his lips move as he recited solemnly the steps of it, through Cumbria to Yorkshire and to his cousins in the city of Wakefield. Over the nights as they conspired, the word Wakefield had taken on the burnish of legend. She saw the city lights spread out. She imagined a child with a North of England accent and a neat little flat in a tower block. She saw herself and Shadanda in the bed eating toast and taking photos of each other, his muscles flexed, her eyelashes fitted, and the toddler gurgling along in pure happiness on the rug on the floor. Shadanda Bramall might soften his cough in Wakefield, she believed, and think harder about his decisions and forget all the nonsense with the lizards and the claw hammers. The day was up and about itself. The fields trembled. Catastrophe was a low slung animal creeping darkly over the ditches across the hills. Her mother had found her one careless morning under the throw on the sofa, topless and asleep in the hot emotional clutches of Shadanda Bramall. That had made it a morning for the annals. Since then, they had slept in 2 sleeping bags zipped together at his King Ink studio. The studio was located over a butcher's shop in Boyle. It reeked of their wild love and animal death. Shadanda was 18 months behind on the rent and had a notice to quit, and lately this involuntary blinking in his left eye. But desperate times, he said, often turned out to be disguised opportunities. Wakefield, as a shimmering prospect, was held aloft before her like a priest's chalice. By now she knew that he would not come back from Castle Baldwin. On the 5-bar gate of a tiny farm high in the Curlew Mountains, she again closed her eyes for the pink fields. She went into a dream. If the moment was never ending, it might not even exist. She felt the presence of something very old and uncaring on the air. An insect's steady keening from the ditch was incessant, like a hopeless prayer or the workings of his needle. He had tattooed on her inner thigh a swallow in flight. In the black times, it'll make you think of summer, he said. In the black times, she thought it'd take more than a badly drawn swallow. He was probably in the holding cell at Ballymote already. He was already on first name terms with every guard in the vicinity. Shadanda Bramall was, and here the words came unbidden, as if from an old ballad recalled, already in chains. The new life within twitched with nervous expectancy, as if it knew already of all the disasters to come. Hannah Cryan came to ascend from herself. Above the green fields and the whitethorn blossom moving in the morning wind, above the stone walls and the forestry pines, above the inland sea of the grasses, above the broken drone of the motorway, above all of this, she measured out the stretch of her 17 years. They had been mean and slow-feeling years. She was almost as old as the century and felt it. Her man in jail and a child at the breast. It was all playing out by the chorus and verse. Her legs weak, her step uncertain, feeling lightheaded and frightful, she trailed back to the van and climbed into it. She sucked the last warm dregs from a bottle of water on the dash, but her thirst was not sated. Often he kept 6-packs of sparkling water from Aldi in the back of the van. For his digestion, he said, which was at the best of times troublesome. She got out and opened the back doors and rooted around among her fiancé's astonishing detritus. She found no water, but she did find the €10 claw hammer from Simon's Brothers Hardware. The scales of the morning fell away. She stood by the side of the van with the claw in her hand. She swung it hard and precisely to extract the eyes from the brute lying face of Shadanda Brammel, that the sockets might dangle and his lively tongue loll. She hadn't the strength to climb back into the van. She sat on the ground, on the pine kernels, and cried for a short while. A few months ago, she had been skin and flint and edges and points. She had been hard, but now she was softened and plush, like a lazy old cat. It was foreign to her. She felt slowed and mawkish with it. He had softened her merely with glances, his touch and words. More than softened, she had been opened. On the mountain, time loosened, unspooled. The fields blinked. The gorse whispered. Morning. It must have been coming by now for noon. If she had the legs to carry her, they might take her the 5 miles down to Boyle. But if she did not get past this moment, she would not have to face the next. She looked out across the high fields. Just now, as the cloud bank shifted to let the sun break through the white thorn blossom was tipping. The strange vibrancy of its bloom would not tomorrow be so ghostly, nor at the same time so vivid. By tacit agreement with our mountain, the year already was turning. The strongest impulse she had was not towards love, but towards that burning loneliness that she knew by nature, the tunes circle and turn. It's the way the wound wants the knife, wants the wound, wants the knife. Now she heard before its sound even broke on the air, the scratch and meek resolve of her mother's corolla. It was neither taxed nor insured. It was taken out only at moments of high emergency. There were not yet so few as her poor mother might have hoped. And yes, here it came, inevitably around the bend from the back road into the forestry pines, and Hannah felt a volley of tiny kicks within. Lulu Cryan was a hollowed woman now. She was like a reed from the drink and the nerves. She stepped from the corolla and came soft-footed and stoically through the gloom of the pine trees to take her daughter in her arms. Oh, you poor fool, she said. Oh, you poor, sweet fool. So that is that from Kevin Barry. And next, we're going to have Charlie Burgess. 1 or 2 songs, maybe a poem, whatever you want, Charlie. But thanks to you, we'll be ending, unless there's somebody else I don't know about who signed up at the very last minute. Is there anyone else? After John and I? No? Good. Okay.
I signed up before, but I don't know if it didn't go through the website.
Is that you? Is that Casey? Emily? Who is it?
That was Emily.
Emily, why don't you go now? You didn't make it onto this list. So I am sorry, but I don't want you left out.
I don't have to.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. I used the website, so I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I saw it on the spreadsheet.
Because it didn't come out on mine.
Too many Arrighis.
Oh, there could never be too many.
I think it's Arrighi now, today.
Right? Okay, so I'll go quickly. Thank you. So this one is, I'm mixing it up a little. So this is a contemporary songwriter who I adore. I've seen him perform live a few times, and he's a very talented singer named well, his performance name is Hozier, Hozier. And was born and raised in, I'm not going to say it right, Delgany. I don't know, but he is born and raised and currently lives in Ireland. He's a beautiful singer songwriter. I am not a singer, so I'm going to read some of his beautiful lyrics as if they were poems, because they sound poetic to me. But he has a song called To Noise Making that came out relatively recently, and it's sort of just about the joy of song. And I thought that would something we could all use right now. So To Noise Making by Hozier. Remember when you'd sing, just for the love of it, any joy it would bring. Honey, the look of it was as sweet as the sound. Your head tilt back, your funny mouth to the clouds. I couldn't hope to know that song and all its words. Wouldn't claim to feel the same we felt as the first time it was heard. I couldn't name that feeling carried in that voice. Was it that, or just the act of making noise that brought you joy? You don't have to sing it right. Who could call you wrong? You put your emptiness to melody, your awful heart to song. You don't have to sing it nice, but honey, sing it strong. At best, you find a little remedy. At worst, the world will sing along. And that's it. You should all go look up the actual song. He sings it beautifully.
Emily, I love that was noise making, because I think of you teaching first grade.
Mom's over here right now, and Dad can also attest. They can hear me teaching first grade very loudly.
And I think of like just the noise making that is endemic and enmeshed with that. So that's really beautiful, and the spontaneity of, I could see someone just throwing their head back and singing, just singing out in the moment.
You should all check out his music. He sings a few very traditional songs too as covers that are really beautiful.
And I'm wondering about his name, because Hozier, it's like osier is a willow.
It's one of his last names. His full name was I think it was Andrew or something, but his last name is Hozier Byrne.
Okay. Double.
Yeah, Hozier is his mom's name. Mm-hmm. His father was a local blues drummer in Bray County, Wicklow.
Okay. So he's not far from home in Delgany, yeah. So that was lovely. Emily, thank you. I would have really been upset if I had missed you on here.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right. So Charlie, there you are in front of the flag.
Hello. Well, thank you, Claire. This has been really lovely. It's so good to see you all. And I was thinking as I was trying to decide what to play, I thought, ordinarily I would do a few songs. And but as I thought about it, I feel like everything I do, I've performed here. My repertoire has been exhausted at this event. So, I was thinking, what can I come up with that no one else is going to have heard? And so I came up with a couple of poems. Back 10 or 15 years ago, I was really involved in these protests I was really emotionally involved in these protests over this motorway that was slated to go through the Hill of Tara landscape, which is like, the Hill of Tara is the seat of the High Kings of Ireland. It's the most sacred place in Ireland, which of course the capital of Ireland is the capital of the world in the view of the people who are the kings of Tara. And, so it's this incredibly significant place, and the government ran this motorway through the middle of it. But there was a time where it wasn't all certain, as much as they were trying to make it out as if it were. And I met a whole rambling cast of characters there. There was the academic Muireann Vrolakine, who was arrested regularly. She was a history professor. There were the mystics and the druids, and then there were the gypsies, and then there was the Bard of Tara, this guy Kiri Murray, who always wrote these poems sort of commenting on things. So I thought, let me go see what Kiri Murray's been writing lately, see if I can find something. So these two, I just tuned in on these two, but you can find him, I think he's got a WordPress site called Bard of Tara. And, but these two are sort of recent writings since the pandemic that I thought would be kind of, well, interesting anyway to hear. And then I'll play a tune to close it out. So this is called Flu. Forgive me for reading off the phone. I haven't got this one memorized, but last night I walked on Tara Hill and breathed the fresh air. But Tara was deserted. Yes, there was no one there. Most people stayed in their homes and they had nothing much to do and were living in fear of their lives from the COVID-19 flu. There was no one in the car park, only Heather Buchanan and me, and I said hello and got into my car and headed home for my tea. Then a car came speeding after me with a flashing light on top, and with its siren blaring madly, it signaled me to stop. So I stopped my van and got out and walked back to see why a Garda and a squad car was in mad pursuit of me. I said, "Why are you after me? What crime did I do?" A guard said, "Keep your distance or you might give me the flu." I said, "I will record this and put it in a poem." He said, "You're not allowed to be more than 2K from your home." I said that I was local and you're making my life hard, and everyone will soon know that you're chasing Tara's bard. He asked me if I was alone or was there someone in my van. He wanted to search my vehicle. I said, "Go ahead, you can." I hope this flu will go away, will fly away, and pray to God it will. And the Guardy will stop playing cat and mouse on sacred Tara Hill. So that harkens back to Claire's comment earlier about the relationship of the Irish with authority.
I mean, I just wondered like how there were going to be enough guards because they had roadblocks up. You know, 5K here, 5K there, like outside of Dublin. I said, you know, how are they going to do this? You know, what's going to be the accountability?
Right. Well, here's another one. This is another short one that I thought might be sort of also topical in a way. This is called Buddhist Lady. An Indian lady came to Tara. She had dark skin and holy faith, and she arrived at Tara's holy well and parked outside the gate. She was boiling water and cooking food and said hello to me, and I shared her Indian food, and she gave me a cup of tea. Then a car came driving very fast and came to a sudden stop. It had a flashing blue light and a Garda sign on top. A Garda asked her who she was, then told her to step out. He said some houses had been robbed and there's a lot of crime about. I said she was a holy girl who would commit no sin, and how dare you judge a person by the color of their skin. He checked license, tax, and insurance. Yes, he had a lot to do, and when I stood up for her, he took my name down too. He said he came from Ashbourne to where a lady made a call, and he was sent to get details and come back with it all. I said, Tara is a temple for people who have faith. And there are evil people full of venom and of hate, like the one who made the phone call that you're attended to right now, to this holy Buddhist lady at the well of the White Cow. So that's Kiri Murray.
Yeah, and that's reminding me of the phone calls that were made, you know, just because people were Black and out living their lives, and someone would call the police. So I posted in the chat, and I'll post the link about the Abbey Theatre is going to do a series of readings from letters and correspondence from the Mother and Baby Homes report. And the Abbey has decided to do this because they've said, you know, March 17th is, we celebrate who we are, we commemorate who we are as a culture, and we have to commemorate all that we are, the light and the shadow. So Charlie, didn't they find gold at Tara and they wanted to dig it up as well as run a motorway through it?
Well, and then they also thought they had the Ark of the Covenant under there, under Ranashannon. So there was this whole thing with the British Israelites trying to dig up Tara, and then Yates and all those guys got together and ran them out of there. but I'm not sure about recent gold. But I know that, I mean, the first turn of sod, when they, they had a big ceremony where they stuck the shovel in and turned the sod over, and they discovered a national monument in the first one. So they had to stop all the work and,
Funny how that happens.
Yeah, we tell them what's going to happen, and then they do it anyway, and then it happens. Yeah. Well, so I just thought I would close it out with a song called "The Rambles of Spring."
Oh,
we're all itching for spring, and I just stuck the chorus in the chat just in case anyone feels like singing along. And thank you all, and I'm sure Claire will say a few words at the end, but miss you all and can't wait to get together again. Well, there's a fearsome wintry breeze blowing through the budding trees. I've bundled up my coat to keep me warm, but spring is on the mend and I'm on the road again with my fiddle snuggled close beneath my arm. I've a fine felt hat and a strong pair of brogues. I've got rosin in my pocket for my bows. And my fiddle strings are new and I've learned a tune or two, so I'm well prepared to ramble, I must go. As a king when I get a breath of spring, the grass is growing long as winter ends. The geese are on the wing, soon the thrush will start to sing, and I'll head on down the road to meet my friends. I've a fine felt hat and a strong pair of brogues. I've got rosin in my pocket for my bows. And my fiddle strings are new, and I've learned a tune or two, so I'm well prepared to ramble, I must go. I've got friends in every town as I ramble up and down, making music in the markets and the squares, cutting jigs and skipping reels, dancing rounds with all the girls in the heavy laden sinker selling wares. I've a fine felt hat and a strong pair of brogues. I've got rosin in my pocket for my bows, and my fiddle strings are new, and I've learned a tune or two, so I'm well prepared to ramble, I must go. To the great and to the small, to rich and poor alike, and all your friends. Until we meet again, may your hearts have found a friend, and may peace and joy be with you until then. I've a fine felt hat and a strong pair of brogues. I've got rosin in my pocket for my bow, and my fiddle strings are new, and I've learned a tune or two, so I'm well prepared to ramble, I must go. So I'm well prepared to ramble, I must go. Happy Paddy's Day, everybody.
Thank you, Charlie. So I want to say, a profound thanks to all of you, and that we all made this happen. We're all here. And it won't be long before we'll all have an event and all be together at the hall. And I'll be making that drive from Vermont and keeping an eye out for those crepuscular ruminants, the Rensselaerville deer. And I'm just very proud of all of you and of all of us being here, that this was able to happen. St. Patrick's Day is so unique in so many ways, because it's a day that everybody wants to be convivial. And it's a day when everybody wants to have a particular kind of community, of a container of music and laughter and song and language and poetry. It's a very particular day for that we all, no matter what our background is, we can all celebrate that, and that it welcomes everybody to celebrate those elements of Irish culture that day. So much love to everyone and every blessing, and Garamia Mahagat. And does anybody have anything else to say in parting? And don't forget to make wonderful, generous donations to the hall and to shop with all the wonderful sponsors. And anyone else have anything to say? I'm looking now at the...
I'd like to say thank you so much, Claire. And also thank you so much, Joe and Casey and Vivian and John, everyone who did the tech side of it. I know it's a big to do. So thank you, everybody, and especially to our techies and wonderful Claire.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you to everyone. I understand that we had at least 20 people just on YouTube, plus all of us who participated in the program itself. And Claire, not the least bit unexpectedly, you made it wonderful as always. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, John. Thanks. Yeah. It brings it out in me when I'm part of this event for Rensselaerville. It's really my only St. Patrick's Day real celebration. Yeah.
Very good. Then we can all listen to the, I think there is a YouTube recording of this, so we'll play it all again on Wednesday, the actual St. Patrick's Day, right?
Good.
If we really want to torture ourselves. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Much love. All blessings.
Peace.
Bye. Peace.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you, Dad. Love you. You're on mute.
Hey.
You're saying?
Bless your reading, John.
Yeah, great job, Dad.